I'll just talking about gold a little bit. I just did want to highlight that gold has definitely outperformed bonds over many time frames, but gold has also outperformed the S&P 500,
Wow.
including dividends. Over, I ran the numbers in Trading View, and I'll just be honest, I haven't fact checked it, but they have a little selection that you can do, including dividends on SPY. So assuming Trading View, which is a very reputable platform, I don't know why it would be incorrect, but assuming it's correct, the gold has outperformed the S&P 500 with dividends year to date, 1 year, 3 year, 7 year, 20 year, and 25-year time
25
periods.
years.
Yeah, I mean, the 25-year one is like, I think that was a big one because so a lot of, well, with gold too, your starting point does matter a
Of
lot,
course. Yeah.
because if you pick it like at the top of the S&P like market bubble in
Like
around
dot-com
the year,
bubble.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you pick it then gold is obviously going to outperform a ton. But if you start it when like that bubble just burst, then the S&P will probably be better. So you can cherry pick the numbers, but the reason why I did that is like you can pick a lot of different time periods where gold has outperformed. But same thing applies with gold. If you pick when gold was really high in like 2011 or something like that, if you start it there, then the S&P has outperformed since then.
Yeah.
That's actually an interesting thought experiment with Bitcoin. I have thought as Bitcoin matures, I've always expected Bitcoin to behave more like gold. And if we do get, well, isn't I'll turn this to you guys. If you can have an asset like gold, which um, it has thousands of years of history, right? It literally was money for a very long period of time, and even that asset can have periods of like FOMO and euphoria, a la 2011 when gold went up a ton, and then it like has some periods where it doesn't do so well. Do you guys think that that could happen with Bitcoin in the future? Not like next year or the year after, but do you see there kind of being like long-term cycles where you can rotate out of Bitcoin and then re-enter it? And I'm just asking about cycle theory, I guess. But what do you guys think gold has any implications for Bitcoin cycle theory going forward?
I don't know. It's kind of off the top of my head, but I think I've always thought that Bitcoin's price, like peaks and troughs, would start to diminish. I've talked a lot about how I think starting 4 or 5 years ago, as larger holders like corporations or countries or just whales, wealthy people, start seeing Bitcoin as a store of value, that will then see like a narrowing of the gap, right? Like you're not going to see the 80% difference in a 4 year period, that kind of thing. And that does seem to be kind of playing out right now. We haven't seen anything more than like a 30% drop, I think, in this period. And if you look at, the chart as a whole, like this past year and a half have been this very, like, you could just basically draw a diagonal line up the chart. It's hugged it super tightly relative to all the volatility in the past. So I do see it becoming less volatile, and I do see it becoming more of a kind of a steady up and down, which I guess is less volatile. So in that sense, I do think it would kind of take the place of gold, or kind of go that direction as a mature asset, an established asset. And I think we are seeing that happen. However, I think there's just still way more upside for Bitcoin. It's like buying, if you got in gold thousands of years ago and you were holding this whole time, there's a lot more upside, because the value of the gold goes up as the value of the marketplace in which it is traded gets larger, and the net value of that marketplace goes up. And so Bitcoin's kind of network value just keeps going up as more and more people use it and find it useful, etc. And so there's just way more available market for Bitcoin to address at this point than gold. But I do think, behaviorally speaking, that we will see kind of a narrowing of that volatility over time, and maybe Bitcoin will get boring. It'll just kind of be boring after a while. But it's been fascinating watching gold, though, the past few years. Gold's making moves, so shout out to Peter Schiff. You were right. you were right. Finally,
Just to kind of build To kind of build on that, I think gold at this point is just viewed as a safe haven. And when you have trouble, when people smell trouble in the bond market, they start to rotate into gold, or when there's geopolitical tensions, they might start to do that. I think Bitcoin will start to take a similar role in that respect. And I think that coincides with its market cap continuing to grow and that volatility starting to tighten and continuing to decrease. Right now, I would say 99 out of 100 people view Bitcoin more aligned as a risk asset than a safe haven. We don't feel that way, of course, but I think most people perceive it that way. And as that perception starts to change, I could see it behaving more like gold, and I could see investors approach towards it starting to mirror that of gold's.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I agree. It seems like, what does the world look like 50 years from now? Is this kind of mind blowing? Like, I have no idea. Are we on a Bitcoin standard at that point? What does that look like? I think everything you guys have said is right on. It just seems like over time we are going to shift from risk on asset to Bitcoin being a risk off asset. It just makes sense. So I think it probably would track something similar to gold.
Yeah, it is just interesting to observe that gold was basically flat from like 2012 to 2020.
Yep.
And if gold is the most analogous asset for Bitcoin, could something like that happen in the future? Yeah, number one, since I asked the question, I'm realizing I'm asking like more like a hyper Bitcoinized future, where it's like everyone who wants Bitcoin already has it, and then it's much more normal and kind of has already been entrenched everywhere. So I'm not talking about anything in the next like 3, 4, 5 years. But then the other interesting thing that you have to mention is obviously mining of gold. Like there are publicly traded gold miners that mined a shit ton of gold. It's like in 08, 09, 10, 11, 12. And that glut, I think, helped there be an 8-year bear market in gold, which obviously would not happen in Bitcoin. So the gold Bitcoin analogy obviously does break down at some points.
No, that's a really good point, though, and it should be noted here that I think gold mining companies will probably respond to this price rally by going and finding more gold and digging out more gold in a faster rate, right? So just remember that gold is inflatable, unlike Bitcoin. So that can happen and has happened.
Where to next? Speaking of gold, since we're on the topic, this is just a quick hit. I don't think we even had it in the formal agenda, Brady, but Harvard, this was announced a few weeks ago, so you heard us cover it on the show. Harvard's endowment bought roughly like $100 million worth of Bitcoin.
Yep.
They also now own $100 million worth of gold. And that was, I think it was the first time, according to this Kitco article, it said Harvard's endowment fund jumped into gold for the first time on record. So
how old is the endowment?
It's
probably like 100 years old or something. We could imagine.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would think it's old. Yeah, pretty close to like whenever Harvard was founded would be my guess. But yeah, 100 years or something maybe.
Very old. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be, I mean, to me, that's a big signal, right? If they're buying Bitcoin and gold in this environment, I mean, to me, it's signaling, hey, we just don't really trust the dollar right now. And I think that feeling is spreading and seems to be accelerating.
Brady, I got to give you the ChatGPT answer to the Harvard endowment. It's phenomenal. Okay. It says it traces its origins back to 1638, just 2 years after the school was founded in 1636. But the reason that they say it officially started back then, or technically, is because there was a reverend who recently came over from England and left half of his estate and his library of 400 books to the college. And the gift, which was worth that, they're saying this was the start of the endowment because it was a gift and it was worth 780 pounds at the time. It became the foundation of the endowment. But I think it became much more of like a professionally managed investment fund at some point, probably like 1800s or early 1900s.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
But this is a signal, right? I mean, these are the kinds of entities who have identified Bitcoin and gold as a store of value, as an alternative to the dollar, as the dollar's store of value property just continues to fail. I mean, it's failed completely already, but people are increasingly realizing that, and not just people, but like asset allocators and people who are running and managing lots of money, and looking to store value. And it seems like dollar and fiat related instruments like stocks, etc., real estate, are being less and less trusted, or to the point where at least they're like, okay, we got to get some of this. We got to dip our toe into it. That's a big signal, in my opinion.
In 1974, they established the Harvard Management Company, which was a separate entity to professionally manage the endowment.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a coincidence that it happened a little bit after 1971, when it was basically like, hey, now that the money's like truly broken and untethered, someone has to manage this pile of assets professionally. Otherwise, we have a melting ice cube of dollars here.
Yeah. So about 50 years old. It's another inflection point on the what WTF happened in 1971.com.
Yeah.
Like, let's take a look at, when did college endowments become professionalized? It's probably like mid 70s. I bet there's a lot.
Probably. Yeah.
Check out BTC in DC, which is at btcindc.com. We have, just in about a month, at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Awesome conference, amazing speaker lineup. Go to btcindc.com to check that out. Use code SWAN for 10% off. Check out Swan Private at swan.com/private. We build strong relationships with our clients, trying to help them invest in a Bitcoin world. We also provide IRAs, Bitcoin IRA services, and we also provide self-custody, collaborative self-custody through Swan Vault. Find us at swan.com